Hey there, welcome to another album review, and today I decided to go back to Breaking Benjamin, which is a band that I have already covered here, and a band that I enjoyed their stuff quite a lot, but I mostly covered Saturate, which was their first album ever, and I think I gave it a pretty poor score, all things considered, because I just, like, it wasn't Breaking Benjamin. Now, this album is the follow-up album, the We Are Not Alone album, and it definitely does sound way more like Breaking Benjamin. It's definitely a step in the right direction, and you can definitely like hear it. I would say that mix-wise, it's still a bit like weird, especially like I noticed that a lot in the first song of the album, not the first, second song, Simple Design, or was it Follow? Either way, one of those two songs, the vocals were still a bit rough, right? It definitely didn't sound very clean, and they were very like deep in the mix type thing, right? It felt like they were just in the back of all of the instruments, which, you know, doesn't really help all that much, especially when you're trying to understand the lyrics. But as a whole, I actually did like the album quite a lot. Again, as I say, it's a step in the right direction, and I do feel that this is where like Breaking Benjamin started being more like Breaking Benjamin, if you know what I mean. Now, the album has 11 songs. The version that I heard on YouTube has 12 because Rain is there twice for some odd fucking reason. Again, like, I don't understand the way fucking people do things in terms of just organization, but whatever. At least it was easy to spot this time around. But yes, essentially this album is definitely on the heavier side compared to Saturate. Saturate was far more on like the rock side. Here is definitely more leaning towards the hard rock side. However, there's still songs like Forget It, for example, that are definitely more on, again, the rock side than they are on the hard rock side, but you already do have that flair in those songs like So Cold, for example, which is probably like the most well-known song of the album, right? Or Sooner or Later as well, that have more that grimy, that sort of depressing, hard, heavy sound, right? Which is what would a lot of people consider to be the signature sound of Breaking Benjamin. So they definitely do have a lot more songs in that regard here. However, you still do have a lot of more leaning rock stuff still. Like, it's not fully Breaking Benjamin, I would say, right? So you have still songs like as I mentioned, Forget It, right? And even towards the later half of the album, like Away and Believe, they're definitely more on the rock side than they are on the hard rock side of things. So definitely there's a mix of it, but I also must say that overall they just have a higher quality, or I think they do, because I'm gonna remember. I don't remember anything from Saturate but the closing song called Forever. Like, I only know Forever. That's the song I remember. I don't remember any other song from that album. So I think it's better quality, right? Because definitely here you do sounds, or the signature sound is definitely way more Breaking Benjamin than it is on Saturate. So I think that as a whole, this album is a step in the right direction and is a elevation of, rather it's like the raising of the bar, comparatively speaking, to the previous album. Definitely they just grabbed everything they've learned and then just did better, basically, like they just improved on every single thing. Again, it's still not the best. Definitely there's still a lot of things that are lacking. Again, I already mentioned the vocals. I don't know if the vocalist definitely is like a vocalist or used to be a vocalist, right? Because here it sounds to me like someone that just kind of had to sing, not that someone that is trained to singing or whatever, right? I must confess, nowadays he is much better, right? The vocalist of Breaking Benjamin is much better, at least from especially the somewhat newly released Away, I think it's the song, which ironically, actually, okay, so they released a song called Away recently, right? But in this album, there's also a song called Away, or not Away, Awaken. That's the song they released. Never mind then. But yes, essentially, when you compare like a lot of the stuff on this album with, especially like, for example, take Follow, right? The song Follow. If you listen to the song Follow and then you listen to the song Awaken, right? Which, I mean, granted, is like 20 years difference, right? But yeah, like, he improved massively on his vocals, because here his vocals are definitely a bit more on the rougher side of things, for sure, right? Obviously, he's never been, like, to me at least, a super talented vocalist. I don't think that, like, the technique, or I guess, the quality of the vocals were not, in my opinion, why people enjoy Breaking Benjamin, right? I think a lot of the instrument, and especially a lot of the composition of the songs, is really what brings people to Breaking Benjamin. I'm not saying that, the vocalist is bad necessarily. I'm just saying he's not exactly that type of vocalist that is like, a vocalist type thing, right? And that's completely fine. I think he does I think he does a fine job, especially nowadays where he's, molded into that role and practiced into that role, right? But here is more of a, yeah, someone just kinda had to get it done type thing, right? To contrast, on the other hand, I think the instrumental is much better, right? I do think the instrumental sometimes, and this is a problem of art rock, it's sort of kind of like mixes together, right? And it's kind of hard to distinguish what the hell's going on, instrumentally speaking, but it is much better. It is catchy, the composition, just stays in your head, right? Like, there's that sort of like bug that a lot of emo songs have, where it's like, it's very easy to remember hooks and stuff like that, right? So the instrumental is especially a step up from Saturate. Like, it is the beginning of that signature sound of the band, so they definitely did a much better job here than they did with the previous album, because again, like, when I heard Saturate, I didn't even like, if you didn't tell me that was Breaking Benjamin, I wouldn't have realized that was Breaking Benjamin, right? Yeah, basically that's I guess the general gist of it. Also, something that I find interesting is, usually, at least to me, I associate Breaking Benjamin to these, like, either like, sort of more like emotional songs, or very like depressing songs, but here some of the rock songs can also go a little bit more towards like that quote-unquote positive side, and be a bit more on the like the major side of things, right? Rather than being, mostly minor, or composed in a way where it makes it feel more depressing, I guess, right? I mean, you do have those songs like Break My Fall, for example, sooner or later, right? Definitely are more on that registry of things, but then, you have Firefly, I think is the song that I remember, that seems a bit more like, like epish rock to a certain degree, right? You do sort of still have that mix, and then you have the closer called Rain, and okay, I'm gonna be a little bit honest. I know that people kind of already ragged on this song and called it corny. Now, slight issue, I don't give a shit usually, right? However, it must be said, I agree with people on this one. Like, I just didn't really, like, okay, I think that as an acoustic song, right, because it's mostly acoustic, I think it's fine, and I think that these type of songs are what Breaking Benjamin would, to a certain degree, also be known for. I think that the band, especially from an instrumental perspective and the way they compose things, I think it definitely fits, like, their performance style, right? It's definitely not depressing, but on the, hopeful side of things, or at least that the emotion that people, or that Breaking Benjamin passes to people, they're good, I think. I think in terms of performing those types of songs, I think they're good, right? Problem being, this is, the rain, go away type thing. It's like a little, like, what was it called, a limerick or something? It's like a little, like, kids song type thing, right? That you say, or that you sing, for, like, to, make rain go away type thing. It's one of those, like, silly kids things. Now, I don't necessarily find a problem with that. I just simply don't feel like it belonged in an album, and I just feel like it's a cool novel thing if you want to do, like, on the side or whatever, but to include it on the, like, the main album, to me is just like, I don't, like, understand it, and I just think that kind of, like, or broke the pacing of everything else, right? Because again, like, it is, as a song, is a bit different, in a way it feels the same shoes as Forever did in Saturate, right? Which is more than this, like, acoustic song that, has a few elements of rock in it, but it's mostly acoustic, right? the thing is, while in Saturate it worked because the rest of the album was kind of and Forever kinda does work, especially because it highlights the best. Like, again, when I say that Breaking Benjamin can be depressing, yeah, sure, that's probably how most people remember them, but they can also have some like awful songs and stuff like that and make stuff sound more beautiful, right? And they will later on incorporate that into more of their, I guess, mainstream songs, like Dear Agony, for example. But back then in Saturate, that didn't exactly like happen, quote unquote, right? So Forever really worked because in a way it was already the sound that it was, or that they were going to incorporate later on in their albums, the sound that was iconic and the sound that kind of worked. But here, it just kind of takes away from the sounds that already work from the other songs, right? Especially when the intro of this album is so insane, like with a song So Cold, which is again like one of the most iconic songs of the band, like of their entire discography. So to like end in a way, or ending this way, like I get it, you want more of a decompressing type song that doesn't go as hard or whatever, right? And I mean, in a way, like Ginger did the same thing in King of Everything, right? With King Bagger, or I think it was the name of the song. It was basically the last song of the album, which is like Ginger's the metal band, like fucking I don't even know like what subgenre they would be into. They're not necessarily gent, but like but the end song was sort of these I don't even know like the genre of that, but it's just like sort of these acoustic guitar and sort of singing, it's sort of that version, right? So I get it, sometimes bands do that and sometimes it can work. For me, for example, that was one of the best songs in the album, right? I love that song despite being so different from the rest of the album. But here, I think it does a major disservice to the entire album, right? I think that the album would be better off without it. Maybe if it was more of a novel concept, or a concept that linked to the rest of the album, I think it would have been better. But again, kind of like grabbing a kid's song and, trying to run with it, making this sort of, acoustic concept, not my favorite. Either way, with all of that being said, in terms of my vibe meter, I gotta say, I'm feeling like an 8 out of 10. I think, look, it's a pretty solid album, but it's still not there, right? Definitely, this is not 1X, like, I feel that Breaking Benjamin still hasn't had, like, their 1X, but I think that it will come. Knowing what I know of other albums, I think it will come. But yeah, for now, I think 8 out of 10. It's pretty solid, yeah, that's pretty much it for me, and I'll see you tomorrow with a new video.